humans are conscious and aware, and I believe there's a lot of conscious awareness in the entire world around us. This is a belief system question, I think. There's different people that believe different things about consciousness and where consciousness resides.
What does it mean to be human? Is it found in our breath, the beat of our hearts, or in the fleeting moments of joy and sorrow? We are fragile beings in a vast universe. What does it mean to be conscious, to wonder? We are explorers of our little world and of ourselves. In this series, we look into this internal exploration, questions with no right answers, only ideas of what it is like to be human, to express what can hardly be explained. We aim to send these explorations beyond our planet, into the furthest reaches of the galaxy. What will the finders of these messages make of our voices, of our questions? Will they see us as we see ourselves? Perhaps, too, they are searching, as we are, as humans.
I feel this awe and wonder. It's different than during the day. During the day is about what I can do during that day and how I feel during that day. When I look up at the stars, it's more about the expansion of possibilities, and it's a different kind of emotional feeling. It's more of a spiritual feeling. There's this experience of being human and being alive. And I think that's where I start. The human experience is also really closely interrelated to me with the human condition. So both pain and suffering that we experience and sometimes put upon ourselves, our species seems to uniquely do more than other species. And also the joys that we experience. And a lot of that is about how we connect with other humans. Now, other species do that too, but there's some ways that as humans, we do that in a way that's unique, or that we are, that makes me feel more human. So some of the emotional connections. Now, other animal species have this too, like whales and dolphins. I think they connect in ways that are beyond human. But we have this way as humans of being able to connect and center around an idea. So we can construct an idea and center around this idea. And that idea might be emotional. It might be creative. It might be driving us to achieve something together. And this is very fundamental to me of what it means to be human, and something I get excited about and feel passion in being human and being human with others. Consciousness is a really tough one. So we were just talking about like this powers of 10. And while you were talking, what kept coming up in my mind was that we might be able to measure to that degree, but how many humans can actually fathom that? How far as humans can we fathom? And who could fathom the furthest, and how do they work? But I know for me, I did a project, this interesting project with the Smithsonian, looking at deep time, like from the dinosaurs, and then doing this cool like evolutionary machine learning to look at how we could project that far into the future as an exercise. How could we try to think that way? Or some of these projects we're doing in space. These are supposed to be billion-year plus archives to last for a billion years. Like, it's so hard to imagine a billion years. How do we relate to that? And I think consciousness is unfathomable in this way to me as well. At the same time, I totally know it because that's like an innate thing in us. Like, humans are conscious and aware. And I believe there's a lot of conscious awareness in the entire world around us. This is a belief system question, I think. There's different people that believe different things about consciousness and where consciousness resides. I do believe it is in pretty much everything. But where is it concentrated and how does that show up? This is a spiritual question in a lot of ways. And I think about an example that really brought this to my awareness to think about quite a bit was that I create projects that explore what it means to be human, both biologically, physically, and then in these other realms as well. And what it means to be alive, like what it means to be conscious. And one of the pieces that I'm pretty well known for is regenerative reliquary. This is a 3D printed scaffold for stem cell culture into bone installed in a bioreactor. And maybe we can drop a link or show an image of this piece. So this is, the idea is to like be able to make in the future replacement parts or bone grafts for patients that need it. And the scientist at one point said, when we're testing this, you should use cancer cells, because if the cancer cells can't grow, then they're much more robust than the stem cells we would eventually need to use. And I just felt like, no, I don't want to do that. I had a really personal response from losing my mother to cancer. But then I went home and I thought, what if I had her cells and I could use her cells and they can continue to grow? And this brings up questions like with the HeLa cells. And this is like a question of consciousness for me. We can measure if those cells are alive, but it's not the same as having my mother there in front of me, even though it grows on and continues to grow. So as we make modifications, as we make technological interventions, as we advance, can we really integrate consciousness into that process? And how do we be aware of how the interventions that we're making are impacting consciousness? So I also looked at this with a piece that I made, The Heart of Evolution, which was looking at medically how we can enhance the structure of the heart through generative engineering, generative design, bioprinting. But I specifically chose a heart because although this could be a great medical benefit, so many people die of cardiovascular disease, it's also this organ associated with deep emotional feeling like love and joy and pain. And these are traits that I associate with consciousness as well. Consciousness is at a very minimal level, and awareness at a more advanced level. And it's this emotional intelligence as well as other intelligences. We have this like intelligence of life that we often just overlook because it's the most basic fundamental level. So I was looking at this heart structure and saying, if we were to redesign this or replace it or change it out in some way, even though it could be of great medical benefit, how could this alter us? How does this alter our conscious awareness? How does this alter our emotional seat of consciousness? How does this change us as humans, both in this lifetime for the recipient and then also over the long view of evolution as we make modifications to our bodies? So I think, look at consciousness as it relates to our human form and other forms as well. But there's also another place that I see consciousness as being more nebulous and not residing in a specific place, that it is all around us and something we can tap into and access if we're aware of. It's almost like a being present in the moment thing that I was talking about before. Well, death is, I think, the perfect question to come, or the perfect thought to come after consciousness, because this is when many humans, if they question consciousness, a lot of people question consciousness around death and around what happens during that period of death and potentially after. We don't know. We have some interesting indications now that we have the technology to bring people back to life that have been dead, and they all report similar things. But we don't really know. And I think this is one of the most fundamental arenas that people start to question consciousness about, where we're in a position where if we want to be, we are face to face with what is the difference between consciousness and the body? Where does consciousness really reside? Is it a form that exists outside of our body? And what happens to it then? Does it retain in a state that is like the human that it was in, like in the concept of ghosts or spirits? Does it go into some kind of other realm where it exists with other consciousness? Is there a finite amount of consciousness? Is there an infinite amount of consciousness? What is the interplay of how those things come together, how they reform, how they form into matter? What is this interplay between consciousness and matter? Is there one? I think love is also in that field. Love is a complex topic, and, Americans, we have like a word for love, like one word for love. There's some other cultures that have many, many words for love, like love that you would have for a food or a child or a partner, romantic love, for example. Love is also like time, and that it's an experience. I believe, it's a feeling, it's an experience. And it's also a state of being. It's one of those things we could try to talk about, but you really have to experience it to know it. And it's a beautiful thing that humans experience. And I believe also other species as well. And humans also experience it with other species. Like we experience it with animals and non-human things too. Like we can love a food or love an activity very much, very passionately, to the point that it drives us. It makes us feel alive. It's part of one of the most beautiful things of being alive and being human. And I feel like it actually ties into so many of the concepts that we're talking about here. Like, how does love relate to consciousness? Some believe that consciousness is love. Love is consciousness. How does love relate to time? Like, to me, I just said, time is an experience. Love is an experience. And we have these ways of trying to describe it, but you really don't know it until you have embodied it. And what is that level of pure love? That is a healing force in the body and in the world, like in yourself and for others. What are these different tiers of love, of receiving love, giving love, being love? And how do we spread that? What is like love and truth? And when you're actually being love and spreading it, that is that truth. That is that. It's not a right doing or wrong doing. It is a gift that heals and is beyond this. I think this is the truth. I think that's the truth. It erases all of that. It brings you to that field. Love is, what else did we talk about? Oh, and then death, like love and death. This is one of the aspects of being human where we really look at love closely and feel so much pain in death when we have a loved one that passes away. Or we pass away because we have certain attachments, love attachments that we don't want to give up, or afraid what's going to happen to them. How are they going to feel when we pass away? So there's a lot of emotions that come up that are very human around death with love. And there's a relationship there as well. And if we do, after death, go into a realm of consciousness, or our consciousness goes into a larger consciousness, intelligence, information, that vibration of love is like what can continue, and maybe what some people feel as like a loved one that visits them, or a loved one that still carries on in their spirit, still carries on with them. So I feel like love is such a beautiful an all-encompassing experience that travels through all the themes that we talked about so beautifully, and is maybe one of the highest forces amongst all of them. Now, for me, an experience of being human, one of the values deeply associated with love is the freedom as well. And like, I think for me personally, I value freedom more than love. Like, a real love is that experience of being free and not having any attachment to these constructs or attachments in general. That love has to do with this free giving, with that being in that field, with that being in that information intelligence beyond our understanding, of just being and giving in a pure joy, like in the highest state of what we can be. When I think about truth, I think about this poem by Rumi, or a section of this poem. And it goes something like, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there's a field. I'll meet you there. And this is where I think truth lies, is that field. Where a lot of humans think truth lies is the right doing and wrongdoing. But there's some fundamental truth that is like that intelligence that we can't quite understand. The concept of time. And something that I really saw where I embodied time was after my mother passed away of ovarian cancer. She was 46 years old. And immediately, like, my period stopped. And I didn't get a period for 10 years. Like, I didn't menstruate for 10 years. And I think my body just automatically wanted to stop that process. Like, it just wanted to stop time so that what happened to her didn't happen to me, or there was a trauma there. And understanding this mind-body connection was really what healed me and led me to make some of my artworks, like biofeedback artwork, where I was connected to different technological interfaces that could help to create a reflection of our internal states that are happening even when we're completely still. Something that really helped me in that regard around time was understanding the concept of the present moment. And this is something that where we're at in our humanity and the popular construction of time, we've lost sight of. People are very busy thinking about the future or grasping to the past. And this is a construct that we have embodied that is harmful and does limit us, but becomes freeing when we understand more. And this is not a conceptual understanding. This is like an understanding we have to have in our beings and in our bodies, of that the only time is now, is the present moment. And when we can really understand that and center that, it opens a totally different awareness. And it's very healing and thrilling. And all of a sudden you see the opportunities for the future. These things you were grasping for are now actually so present because of this being in this moment. But these are things I feel like are hard for me to describe in words because it's not of this thinking mind. It is of the actual practice. And I'm even getting emotional speaking about it because it is so profound. And so then once we have that understanding of what is this authentic relationship to this construct that we're trying to name as a construct, then we can see the measurement we've attached to the construct we've attached to it and keep that in more of a healthy perspective and use it to our benefit. But until we can have an honest relationship with the underlying fundamentals that we are trying to name or make a construct around, it's really difficult to navigate. It's like planting your flag post in the ground and saying like, I am here right now, and understanding that, or being tossed around. I think that's the best way I can describe it. So I think about a few things. There's the one kind of information that I think of as like the intelligence of life. Like DNA is one of those intelligences. Atoms aren't necessarily always associated with life, but this is like one of our intelligences of the universe. We have all of these intelligences, some of which we know how to identify and some which we do not. And there's a lot of information there. That is a much greater wisdom than we know how to perceive. Of that magnitude, like you were talking about, we can only see like times however many zeros to the nth degree. The intelligence and the information that is latent in the world around us, I believe, is so much greater than we can perceive. It's to the like how many zeros degree. We can't fathom it. We can't understand it. And we try to. That's part of our quest of being human. We want to know. We want to name it. I love that about us. It keeps us going forward, but we can't really know. So there's an intelligence much, much greater than we know how to identify. We know how to name. And the information that goes with that intelligence. There's also like the human intelligence and information that we carry. And part of that has to deal with memory. And this kind of goes into time as well. And this is interesting with like the being in the present moment and how memories can be distorted and how we get information and the difference between knowledge and wisdom. And there's so much there to unpack with information and what is information. And so my mind just like pinballs when you talk about information, you know, and we were just mentioning quantum, and I had this amazing opportunity in Berlin to be able to like experience some of these experiments with quantum communication and encoding information to be traveled on an, you know, to travel with an atom for like 0.0000001 millisecond. But like if they can make that information last just a little bit longer, how exciting that prospect is, and how, all the stuff that comes up with that again makes us like just rethink, just realize we have no idea the amount of information and the intelligence is out there. So I would say like the information is coupled with intelligence of the universe, of the natural world. And that's beyond our understanding. There's just so much information. So where do we even start to tap into that? My aspiration for humanity is that we learn to identify, collectively come together and be able to identify what is for our best and highest good, what is for our best and highest good for the planet. How can we really be beautiful? How can we exist in that field and be love and work together to get there? Because we have that ability as humans. We just don't often use it. And when we do use it, it is one of the most beautiful things. It's one of the most landmark things, and it transforms our world, and it transforms the future. It echoes through time. I'm an artist and designer that poses big questions about how technology impacts our humanity, how technology impacts our future. I work as an artist and designer because that is the way that I explore the best. That's the way I research the best. That's the way I communicate the best. But really, my work is of a different implication than that. And I hope to make an impact on how we are empowered to shape the future, that we see that we have a role in that process and that we may each do it in our own way, but that we have and can take a role in designing and shaping the future that we want, and ideally for the best and highest good for humanity, for our biosphere, for our universe.